Hi, I'm Tracey.
Hi, and I'm Faye, and welcome to More Better with Tracey and Faye.
One, two, one, two, three.
More better. More better. More better. With Tracey and Faye. Yeah.
So this episode, this might feel a little bit personal.
Uh-oh.
Because we're going to be talking about something that people may feel uncomfortable talking about. Or sometimes people don't know how to express, or something you may or may not giving or receiving.
Uh-oh.
Or maybe they do like it, but they don't do it very well. Feedback.
Oh.
We're talking about feedback. Nothing else. Whatever was on your mind. We're talking about feedback. Because in the world of work and communication, it's there a lot. It's pretty important. Yeah, Faye? Yeah? You have something to say about that particular F word? Feedback?
I didn't know if it was going to be that F word, but, I'll take it. So,
Yeah.
because feedback, super important and super tricky. Look, everyone's a critic these days, especially with social media. Everyone's got an opinion about something, and that can take a toll on how you go about getting input. It can make you gun shy, angry, withdrawn, or motivated.
Yeah.
I also feel that organizations are more collaborative than ever.
Yeah.
Teams nowadays include more people from across an organization or for different levels, rather than just one team dictating what needs to be done and implementing it.
Yeah.
So with increased collaboration comes more input, more points of view, more feedback. What do you do with it all? Everybody wants to be collaborative, but guess what? Collaboration can be really hard. Thoughts?
Yeah, it really can be, because if I'm working on, say I'm the comms pro on a multifunctional team. So my job is to create the communication plan, the messaging strategy, all that stuff. Maybe some of the, say, some news articles or videos, and I'm writing, or speeches, and I'm writing that stuff. And I need to share it with that team, but they're not communicators, And so it's a really interesting process to have to manage, because you want people to give you input, but you need to manage that input, and you need to manage how you're talking about it. When you were just talking now, I actually was, when you're saying everyone's a critic, I was thinking about social media posts.
Oh, no.
Like personal, you just write, hi, this is my view on this band that I saw last night. And then people come back with, well, that's a stupid point of view. Why would you say it like this? By the way, there was a typo in your message. Like on and on. People are like, dude, I would just enjoyed the band. And I just wanted to say I had a great night watching this band, not get my grammar corrected, not tell me that I shouldn't like that band because they're crappy. It's like you said, everyone's a critic. Everyone's giving you feedback. But in a professional capacity, you need to learn how to manage that, both the asking for feedback as well as the receiving that feedback, and also giving it when it's asked of you. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about exactly those four things. One, how do I ask for feedback? You've created a piece of work that you need to get feedback on. How do you actually ask for it? How do you give it when you've been asked to receive it, or asked to review it or approve it, or both? How to receive feedback that comes back at you.
Mm-hmm.
How is that coming to you, in what form, and what are you going to do with it? And then, as I said, I'm the comms person on a team of 10 people. How do I actually manage feedback from 9 different people and have things not go terribly, terribly off the rail? So, actually, off the rails, plural. Let me just correct that one, Tracey. Off the rails. We got multiple trains going, so many rails. Okay. First off, let's talk about asking for feedback. Faye, what scenarios does this happen in, and how do we go about asking for feedback?
Well, for me, I'm usually asking for feedback as part of a formal review and approval process. Like you said, as a as the communicator or change person on a project, we're drafting something on behalf of the project or behalf of someone, etc. So say I've written a message about some technology project that's going to impact a certain department. It's going to introduce some changes. The content contains all the things, right? What's happening, why it's happening, when it's happening, all that sort of good stuff. I need the right people to chime in to ensure a few things: technical accuracy, project accuracy, business impacts. So when asking for feedback, my advice would be, first of all, ask up front who needs to review and for what purpose. That's super important. Do you need someone to ensure it's technically accurate? Yes. That's super important. Do you need someone to ensure it's legally correct? Yes.
Probably.
Super important. So review, and I would say that review is the operative phrase here. That is very different than visibility. So I'm going to talk about that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Be selective as to who needs to represent a certain area or of expertise. So for example, in a tech project, do all the functional analysts need to see it, or is the most senior person, can they be the one that represents their point of view? Does everyone in the business team need to weigh in, or can it just be the business analyst, right? Or can it be the people that are most intimate with how users will be impacted? So be selective and be clear about why you're selecting those people. Be transparent. I find that this is really important about who's involved. So I remember you told, I think in one episode, you shared that you had to one time circulate a paper copy of an annual report.
That's how old I am. Well, yeah, it would be paper, 25 pages, 10 copies, 15 copies of this one thing, and they would all go out to all the people.
No, thank you. And how'd you get everyone's scribbles? And then you had to go figure all that out, right? So now with SharePoint, Teams, and Microsoft and how we do that, it can be fully transparent. I would encourage you to use that transparency to your advantage. People can then see each other's comments, tag each other when they have questions. And you can also, as the person who has to coordinate all that, say, hey, so-and-so asked a question. How about you, Tracey? Why don't you answer that? Instead of you trying to say, I'm going to go ask Tracey now, and then be that sort of messenger. Don't be that messenger. Be clear about who needs to see it for visibility. So yes, everybody wants to see it because it's going to move up to their manager. Or maybe there's some protocol, hidden or not, about who needs to see something before someone else. Or maybe they're in a team that has to support it. So like tech support, right? So they want to be able to see, what are you communicating to employees as an example, so that we know when calls are coming in and what kind of calls might be coming in. So ask up front for who needs to see it and identify the best time for those people to see the content, not review it.
Right.
A couple other tips I would say is be clear about how to provide it. So invite people be very clear about track changes, turn it on or use comments, etc. And be clear about when you need those inputs. Sometimes I like to do a process map. I know that sounds boring and nerdy, but totally helps, depending on your audience, so that they see exactly who has seen what and when and how. And stick to your deadlines. So one thing I've learned is that, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but let's say you need feedback by Monday. Monday rolls around, you didn't get anything. So Tuesday rolls around, you go, still nothing. So Wednesday you say, hey, anybody has any time? Can you send me your feedback? That sort of thing. And then you get some. Well, by doing that, you've just told people that your deadlines really aren't real. And it's dependent on their schedule, not yours or the project's. You get what you tolerate. So if you need feedback by end of the day, work towards that deadline and be clear remind your group about those deadlines and be clear about what silence means. So if I don't hear anything from you, I'm going to assume it's approved, right? Yeah. So I think that the more consistent you are about how to ask for feedback and how you sort of manage that process, the more your approval and review group will know how to work with you.
Yeah, for sure. I would, one of the things I really want to drive home to people is giving people deadlines is kindness.
Yes.
And I've heard people say, well, this is going up the chain. This is like 2-3 levels above me. It's into the executive, the C-suite people. And I don't want to give them a deadline because who am I? And I say to look, these are very busy people. If you don't give them a deadline, they will never look at it. They will never, ever look at it. And so if you are, let's say like it was going up to the EVP of this or that, and Tuesday rolls around and they still haven't given me feedback, and maybe I have the relationship, I can chase that person down or go to their assistant. Just FYI, if you're working for a big company, and you can't get the person, look for that person's assistant because they can help make that happen. But deadlines are key. And the only other thing I would add, or maybe more enhance, is make sure people know what they're being asked to do.
Nice. Yeah.
So are they reviewing for factual? Are they reviewing for style? Hopefully not. You really don't want people changing style. You want, if they have changes, it needs to be substantive. It either means that it's factually wrong or the messaging is not accurate. But we do not want people to send anything back and rewrite it how they would have done it.
Yeah.
So never leave it open-ended. Give me your feedback is not helpful to people. You just want to say, please review for whatever it might be.
Well, speaking of that, so let's talk about how to give feedback.
Okay.
So how would you, go. So, sorry. You go for it.
How would I do that? Well,
how would you do that?
I would, first and foremost, if I'm asked to give feedback and I don't have very clear direction on the kind of feedback they want, I go back and I ask. Because I can take something that someone has written and I can go to town. I can rewrite the whole damn thing if I feel like it, but that's not going to be helpful. That's just meeting my need to rewrite something that I don't think it's done well enough, but it might absolutely be fine. It's just not my style. So when I'm given something and asked for feedback, I really want to make sure I know exactly what they're looking for from me. So I don't either under-deliver or over-deliver, because either is not helpful to the task at hand. So what I also do oftentimes is, if I think something it could be done in a different way, but I don't typically say, change it, change this, change that. Like I would do that if it was on my team and there was something that needed to be edited, I could go in and say, I want to do this. But typically what I try to do is I say, attached are some suggestions for your consideration. So I don't want to say, I'm all knowing and I'm going to give you my stuff and you should do it my way. I say, for your consideration, because the thing that I don't know is everything else that's going on for them. I know they're coming to me, but they're probably going to other people too. So is it going to be helpful for me to say, do it this way, it's wrong? No, it's much more helpful for me, I think, both in receiving and in giving, to say some suggestions for your consideration. And I just find that's a nicer way to offer it. And again, just be direct. If I see something and I really think it's off the mark, I will say that. But I typically will like to do that in a conversation. I'll say, hey, this feels a bit off the mark. Here's why. Then I can have that conversation. And then if the person says, yeah, I agree, can you make those changes? Great. Or they might say, no, I think I'm going to stick with this. Can you just read it for, clarity and grammar? Okay, I can do that too. So I feel like it's a relationship, and I want it to be an effective one and a warm one and a kind one. Because if you're asking for my feedback, I want to be helpful. I don't want to be a butthead.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
I like what you said about choosing the right way to provide feedback too. Like, when writing this episode, I was thinking only just about, the Word document and have comments and track changes, that sort of thing. But you're right. Like sometimes the feedback could be sensitive. So, do you have to be transparent about that and might cause someone some embarrassment or be sensitive to what they're, like you said, like, what is that person going through? They might have to go to 30 people to get something reviewed, right? So if something is really like you feel strongly that, hey, it needs to be changed, or this is off the mark, or, like there's something there, have a conversation, have a quick 15-minute, phone call. Yes, phone call, Teams chat with them, something like that. No, I like what you said there. Thanks. Now, thirdly, I think this is thirdly, how to receive feedback. This is a good one because it feels like I said before, we get feedback on everything.
All the time.
I get feedback on everything. whether it's a typo in my email or someone telling me how to do my job. So, and feedback can be positive, right? Which always feels good. So when you ask for feedback, how can we take and receive feedback that helps us move the work forward? So some tips. Feedback feels personal. I've had VPs find, like and you too, right? Find a typo or a grammatical error, and I felt humiliated. But they didn't comment on what was actually like the content, right? And that hurts, but that's okay. So when you're asking for feedback, know that you'll get feedback in all ways, even if you were clear that, hey, I just need you to look at this technical, like, is this technically accurate, or the business impacts, whatever. Some leaders are sticklers for those typos and grammatical errors. My advice. Oh,
just
sorry.
Jump in here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I stomped all over you. I didn't mean to do that. But before you moved on to your next point, I wanted the point about things being personal. And I know I have at times where I get certain kinds of feedback and it feels very personal. And then I would feel kind of like I just get all up in my frustration and anger. And that's when it was like, just walk away, Trace.
Yeah.
Just walk away from it, give it a breath. Because what I hate is if people give feedback on something that I actually thought was really good.
Yeah.
And then it comes back and they're like, oh, this word, I don't like this word. I don't like this. I think this comma is in the wrong place. And I'm like, I used to work, sorry, one more thing. I used to work at a design agency. And so you would put these designs out to clients of here's directionally where we want to go. And they go, oh, I don't like that shade of blue. And you're like, yeah, but what about overall? We just created this whole design. What do you think about in general? Are we heading in the right direction? And they'll go, oh, yeah, it's great. But I don't like that blue.
Yeah.
Like,
I want cerulean blue instead of indigo or aquamarine or whatever. Yeah, I know. Okay. So I think it's just, and it's tricky, right? So I think I know I've had to like build up my skin in that space. It's tricky. And, my advice would be just like maybe walk away and then be gracious. Yeah. Correct them if it's appropriate, and learn for next time, right? So when you're working with that particular person, right? Now you know what they're like. Now you know when you ask for something, you may get, X, Y, and Z back. And like I said, learn from it. Were you clear? Maybe, if you're not getting the feedback that you thought you were going to get, were you clear about what type of feedback you wanted from them? Were you clear? Would you meet them in terms of where they were at? Right. Yes. And don't be afraid to give feedback about the feedback. So if the inputs are not what you're looking for, ask for clarity right away. Tag people in the process. If it's a senior leader, who's providing, like sometimes a senior leader will provide feedback and then other leaders, you're not sure where it goes because it's really then a conversation. Maybe it's a conversation about alignment among senior leaders, right? So tag them, make this process as transparent as possible. Because sometimes the feedback may not be yours to solve. And sometimes feedback isn't about the feedback. I know that we're broken. I don't know if I'm getting confusing people out there, but sometimes the feedback cycles surprisingly cause FOMO. People want to be seen and heard. And if they aren't, you might hear stuff like, I need to see this before so-and-so, and I need to review it because it impacts my team. Or if so-and-so reviews it, then I need to do it at the same time. This is why I love making feedback as transparent a process.
The politics of feedback.
The politics of feedback, for sure, right? So it helps to mitigate those FOMO feelings, believe it or not, up front, and have those conversations about power dynamics, office politics, hierarchy before you're in the process. I mean, it's not completely unavoidable. They will come up. And again, like that can feel personal because maybe you didn't do your job or maybe something is surprising. That's okay. But let's try to sort of understand that those things are sometimes underlie the feedback. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I know over my career, one of the benefits of working with a group of people and at an organization for a long time is you start to learn where the shortcuts are. Yeah. So I know that if I need feedback on a financial section of whatever this thing is, I can go to this person because I know that this person is trusted by the VP of finance. I know if they're looking at it, that their boss is going to be good with it. And I can say this person who you respect has reviewed it, and they're like, great, I don't need to see anything more. And developing those relationships with those trusted partners is, I found to be exceptionally beneficial. And you can go to people and say, I've written this one paragraph. I just need to know, is it accurate or am I way off base?
Mhm.
And if they know you and they trust you, they can say, yeah, they can talk about that one paragraph, not the entire document.
Exactly.
So it's, Faye always uses the phrase trust and confidence. And when it comes to feedback, trust and confidence is key. And so you need to approach it with graciousness,
Mhm.
and you need to receive it with graciousness. And that's not always easy, but it will benefit you
For sure.
in time.
Yeah. For sure. So that takes us
which-
to our last section.
Yeah, which kind of feeds into that, which is how do you manage the feedback that you've received? So Faye was talking about how in the olden days when I would do annual reports, and literally I would have 10 open documents, physical multi-page documents, and I would have to flip. Okay, now I'm on page 8. What did all these 10 people say on page 8? How do I have to incorporate that? And it was tricky business, I got to say. But then over time, I realized who was the most important voice for these various sections. And guess what? Legal always won.
Legal and compliance, right?
I just go, okay, what does legal say about this? Okay, it's an annual report. We're going to go with them.
Yeah, exactly.
So it can be different. It can be difficult, but it's understanding who has the most appropriate voice to give feedback on this one section. And especially if you're having, conflicts. I mean, it's interesting with what allows the transparency. So everyone can go into, the one Google Doc and see who's made what changes. And that makes it a lot easier. But also, 3 things to remember around receiving feedback, which is your feedback counts too. Stick to your process. And you're the person who makes the final decision. And so when I get back, let's say it's not a Google Doc. Let's just say everyone's just giving me their feedback directly. I can look at what everybody said, and then I'm going to rely on myself.
Yeah.
If it's factual, I'll go to the experts. But if it's a matter of style or pacing or messaging, I trust me. I trust me more than I trust other people because that's why I'm doing this job. Faye mentioned earlier about stick to your deadlines. Absolutely stick to your deadlines or you'll be screwed. And so that means being super clear in your ask. And if you want to know how to do that, Faye and I have an episode on how to write a really clear email with a very clear call to action. Use that. Be clear, be direct. Your audience will be thankful for that. And then stick to the process that you have established. And again, trust yourself to finalize it. It's probably going to have other eyeballs before it's final, but hopefully in your process, those are people just to check to make sure. That's just the gut check at the end, just to make sure nothing major was missed.
Yeah.
Anything to add there?
I would say that the one thing I would add is like getting feedback, especially if it's a lot of people. I mean, I'm trying to think like the largest group was probably 35 people I had.
Oh God!
And I think
You're still standing.
And then yeah, exactly. And then number of versions, I think I hit. I don't know how many versions you've hit. I would say
double digit.
25.
Double digit for sure.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, but just remember that getting feedback doesn't mean you have to incorporate everything. I think in my early in my career, I felt that every time someone made a change, I would have to incorporate it. Yeah. Right? I felt like I wasn't confident in my ability and my ability to say, well, actually, no, I don't think we need to. Yes, it says blue. I think the word blue is fine. Indigo, we don't need to say indigo or whatever that is, right? So I would say, like, you don't have to include everything. That's all it is feedback for consideration, right? Yeah. And if you're not sure, go back to your audiences and objectives and assess whether the feedback that you've received from people, whether it's content changes, etc., supports those objectives. Mm-hmm. Wow, we have I didn't realize we had so much to say about feedback.
Feedback FOMO is my favorite.
All
I love that.
right.
I would totally be a feedback FOMO person.
Would you? Oh, no.
I'd be like, let me see that. I used to be like that. I was like, I wanted to have my fingers and everything. Now I'm like, that's fine.
All right. Well, let's recap and review what we talked about. So what we did in this episode, we talked about feedback, all things feedback. 1, how to ask for feedback. 2, how to give feedback if you're being asked to review or approve communication. 3, how to receive feedback. And 4, how to respond or manage feedback, especially if it's tricky or if it hurts. Anything to add?
I would say the only thing I want to add to that is just trust yourself.
Nice.
Trust yourself. You're the point person, and there's a reason you're the point person. So trust yourself. Yeah.
Cool. I like that.
And if this was helpful to you, let us know. Like, subscribe, follow us on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you get podcasts. And also know we are happy to work with you and your teams to map out a communication plan to support your projects or programs, and including feedback. Want to know how to get feedback? We can help you with that. Let us know. Contact us. So Faye, any more feedback on feedback?
Could have been better. Could have been worse. That helpful?
Well, that's helpful.
And with that, I'm Faye.
And I'm Tracey. Join us next time on More Better with Tracey and Faye.